Hello and welcome back to World Traveler Cooking. Today we're going to make a traditional Thursday dish for Sweden. It's particularly common in November in Thursdays, but I've seen it at other times of the year as well. Pea soup, which is typically served with pancakes and sometimes followed by punch, both of which will be followed by future videos. Now the pea soup here is a yellow pea soup. And this is a very hearty soup, it can be topped with, for example, salted pork. We will not top it with salted pork. I've actually never seen that in restaurants. What I've usually seen is soup basically with like pork shank or other pork meat in the soup itself, which is what we're going to make here today. The ingredients are relatively simple. I have what was half a kilogram of yellow peas, which I have soaked overnight in water. Let them swell up nice, and then drain them in a sieve and rinse them with water. Okay? Then we have our pork, and ideally you should get like a kilogram of pork shanks. But if you can't do that, just even half a kilogram of either pork leg or shoulder will do. I have half a kilogram of pork shoulder here, and that should work just fine. We have an onion, which we will stud with 2 cloves. And then we have about, looks like about a tablespoon or so of marjoram and about a tablespoon of thyme if you're using American measurements. If you're using just a straight kitchen spoon, try to fill it about halfway up, and you'll get about the same amount. So that, and then we have salt, basically, to taste. We will also have 2.5 liters of water, and we may add more as we get towards the end. So what I'm going to do next is I will peel the onion, and I will stud it. I will stick the 2 cloves into it, and then I will set up everything to boil. So I'll be back once I've peeled my onion, and we'll go ahead and get the rest of this started. Now, if you're using a whole pork shank, you should remove the skin, and then just sort of, boil it with the bone in. That will give a little bit more solid mouthfeel to the broth. But if you don't have the bone, then that is what it is. At any rate, let's go ahead and get started. So first we will take our 2 cloves and we will stick them in the sides of the onion, like so. It's not going to be super easy, but just do your best. And go ahead and set that in with your peas. You can add your spices now also. I like to add some salt. We'll add more later. And then I will prepare the pork. What I have here is pork cut into cubes. I'm going to slice each of these cubes, and I will lay these on top. And I will be right back. The pork. And now we'll add the water. One. Two. And a half. Now we'll set this on to boil. So this is now on to boil. Once it starts to boil, we'll skim off stuff that forms on the top. And then we will boil this for about 2.5 hours. We will have to stir it occasionally because otherwise the peas can sink to the bottom, form a mass that insulates the rest of it and burn. We definitely don't want that. So we do stir it occasionally. So we'll be back once this boils. So I just came back out and this is boiling. It doesn't look like there's any stuff to skim off. The only pieces that are floating are pork. So I'm just going to give it a nice stir. I'm going to turn it way down. And we'll just let this cook for about 2 hours. Now, if you're cooking with a whole pork hock, you'll cook it in here whole with the skin on, no, with the skin off, and then you'll cut it off the meat near the end. Since I don't have bones though, since I just have pieces, I'm cutting it now to avoid having to fish out pieces at the end. So that's why I cut it already, but you don't have to. And we're just going to let this cook a bunch more. I'm going to move this to a smaller burner, and we'll just let it cook. So it's been 2.5 hours or so, maybe a little longer, and this is what the soup looks like. This is looking very close to what I've seen in Sweden. So I'm going to go ahead and serve some up for the taste test. And this can be served with a little bit of mustard added, but I don't think it needs it, and usually when I've had it, I don't think I've had it with mustard added. So you can add mustard in it if you like, but you don't have to. So this is what I will use for the taste test. I will do some photography of this and I'll be back to taste it. And now for the taste test. First I'm going to taste this straight and then I will try it with just a little mustard. This is actually a really nice soup. It's hearty, it has some nice flavors. It's just very nice. Now, since I'm only having a small bowl, I'm only going to take a tiny amount here, and I'm going to stir this mustard in. Normally it would be like brown mustard, but what I have is I have some yellow mustard. So the mustard does add some general body. It is very nice. I don't know whether I prefer it with the mustard or without. They're both quite delicious. What is interesting is the texture of the peas. After 2.5 hours of simmering, they're soft, but they haven't dissolved like I'm used to. And the pork is nice and tender. This is actually really delicious. I really like it. And I think that there's a reason why this is such of a typical weekly dish in Sweden. So if you find this content interesting, please like, share, and subscribe. Additionally, I will put down where you can find and follow my work elsewhere on social media. If you make a dish like this and you do it a little differently, I'd love to hear how. Any other comments? Love to hear them. At any rate, bon appetit and see you next week.